Are you feeling frustrated that someone in your life is lacking in emotional intelligence? Yeah, I get that way too. My take on this might surprise you though. So keep watching to learn how to deal with low emotional intelligent people in your life in a way that actually works. So, first, let's acknowledge that we all lack some level of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence doesn't stay like intellectual intelligence in one category at all times. It fluctuates depending on where you are in your life. So don't get caught in judgment of someone's behavior without first recognizing where you fail to meet good standards of emotional intelligence yourself. Here are some reasons that we all lack emotional intelligence. First, fear of discomfort. We are born to seek comfort and want comfort, and if we do not allow ourselves to face our fear of discomfort, of difficult emotions, it will spill into our lives. Mostly, we avoid uncomfortable feelings unless we train ourselves to face them and act on them. This takes real effort. We have to learn to turn and face that feeling that is like, ooh, I don't want to look at it, avoid it. You know, Wayne's World, Wayne and Garth. I don't even remember it. I don't know if people remember that anymore, but there's a scene where they're walking past this girl that's a crazy girlfriend, and they're like, look away, look away. They don't look at her because they're hoping that in not looking at her, she will not notice them and leave them alone. That is like your uncomfortable emotions. They're coming for you. They're coming for you whether you want them or not. So face the discomfort down head on. And I got a story at the end of this video about my inability to support someone with low emotional intelligence. So make sure to stay for that. The second thing, understanding the pillars of emotional intelligence is very important to the development of it. When you begin to understand what makes up emotional intelligence, you can work on that and make it better. It has been significant for me in my life when I began to understand that the awareness of all the emotions in my body is a piece of emotional intelligence. Knowing I feel fear, knowing I feel sadness, loneliness, unhappiness, happiness, joy, all of it together, right? The whole chorus of your emotions must be recognized. You can't deny any of them. I hear people say this all the time. Well, I don't want to feel fear anymore. Sorry, you're human. You're going to. After you are aware of all the emotions, you have to have the capacity then to know that you can manage these emotions. Managing them doesn't mean denying them. It means knowing that they're there, feeling them, and allowing them to be expressed, right? Knowing, hey, I am in control of what I feel. I can be in prison, say, and I can still be happy, regardless of my situation. That's the management. The third piece is expression. That is actually touching the emotions that we feel. When we have an emotion within us that we deny the ability to feel, it actually creates a delusion within us. It's like that child that is tapping on your leg saying, Daddy, 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 and you're ignoring the kid trying to have a conversation, and the kid just starts tapping louder and louder. Next thing you know, they're laying on the floor screaming, and you're like, dude, I'm sorry, I gotta go. And you pick your kid up and you leave because that emotion, that child is your emotion, has been ignored to the point where the delusion of it is crazy. And maybe that kid was just saying, Daddy, I gotta go to the bathroom, where is it? And then they wet their pants, and now you're carrying a child out of the place that wet his pants, and you could have helped them if you'd have just paid attention. That's like your emotions, right? The final piece of emotional intelligence is empathy. What is your capacity to look at the other person doing something that maybe you think is crazy and to say, I can see myself in you? That is powerful. When you begin to do these things and you have these categories in place and work on these specific pillars, all of your emotions become more manageable. They become something that you can actually use as a system of information to guide you in your life. It's a very, very powerful thing. And it helps you with people that are not emotionally intelligent because the empathy comes in and you're like, yeah, you know what? I do that too sometimes. And you can give them a little bit of space to learn like we all are learning. The third thing is learning to get comfortable with feeling all the emotions that you have. This takes practice and it bucks the cultural norm. We have been taught that there are many emotions that are not appropriate for many situations. This is frankly a deeply misguided thought pattern, right? When we deny our anger and our negative emotions that are rising within us, they will bleed into our conversations. They will taint the view that we have of what is going on in front of us. This is what happens when you see somebody triggered, when somebody says something to them and they respond in a way that is deeply disproportionate to what was going on. That's because you are not aware of your emotions. So, how comfortable are you feeling all of your emotions? If you're not comfortable feeling them all, then you got some work to do. I know I'm still not. I have many emotions. Honestly, crying in front of people is really hard for me. I don't like to feel sadness. I don't like to feel loneliness. I actually don't mind, well, I don't like to feel extreme fear, but I'm capable of feeling it, right? I'm good at some things. Confusion is fine with me. I've been confused my whole life. But there are some negative emotions that I struggle to feel. And so I'm working on getting comfortable, and hopefully you are too. The fourth thing is when you fail, and you will, you're gonna fail to be emotionally intelligent at times because it just is life. Rehearse the failures. Look at what happened that caused you to be triggered in that moment so that you ignited a situation rather than meeting it in the way you want it to. Rather than blaming the people around you and saying, well, they did this and that's why I responded, look to yourself and say, when they do that, this triggers that emotion in me. Why does that happen? And get to the core of it. Once you begin to understand why that's happening, man, you can meet that situation the next time and really, really do well. Before I get to the final story, the one I'm going to tell you coming up about my low emotional intelligence, don't forget to hit subscribe. Subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you be a part of this. So my inability to support someone with low emotional intelligence, I think, is a sign of my own lack. And I have a number of triggers that come at me. Some of my triggers that I'm aware of because I rehearse, people that make me feel really stupid. I felt quite stupid as a child. It was a point of my low self-worth that made me feel like I was dumb. And so if there are ways that you come at me that make me feel really dumb, I might be triggered. But I have a recent trigger that kind of came up with me because I've joined a lot of networking groups and I've done a lot of things like that. I was invited to a men's group by a good friend of mine. He's a great guy, and he said, hey, I got a great networking group and I'd love you to come see. These are really good, powerful men. And we got there and I sat down and they pulled out these books and they started reading from them. And it was a men's group, and they said that to be a part of the men's group that we had to admit that there was one God and that we loved him and all this stuff. And then they asked somebody to say a prayer. And I honestly felt duped. And I'm from Canada. And in Canada, we do not mix business with religion. It's a hard line that you just don't cross. The US is not so hard line. And I should prefer the fact that it's more fluid here. It's not such a hard line, but it is still a trigger for me. And I felt like I'd been duped, like maybe I've been pulled into some sort of religious group. And my instinct to that moment, my initial instinct, I'm giving you actually a time when I did well. My instinct was to stand up in the middle of the prayer and say, this is bullshit. This isn't a men's networking group. This is some Christian group of men and you're trying to convert me to something. Get the hell out of here. I'm not doing this in business. Really wanted to do that and storm out of there and make him feel embarrassed, right? But I realized that that anger, that fear, that confusion that I was feeling was misdirected. It was not proportionate to what had happened. I had been invited by this guy in real honesty and in real kindness to come to this place and meet these good men. And they had a component that to them really was nothing about the business networking. It was just kind of something that they felt unified over in their belief in God, which is not a problem. But I felt specifically like my friends are atheists, they are Muslims, they are Hindus, they have all these different belief systems, and I don't want to put a barrier between me and those people. And that's what's happening here, right? It's just what I felt. didn't have any impact or it didn't really change the fact that I was there with a bunch of good guys that after all that happened, we had a really good time. We had a good conversation. They were powerful, brilliant men. And I was able to walk away and then later write to my friend and say in a letter, hey, thank you for the invite. That's not really my environment. So I won't be coming back and I appreciate you letting me in. And it was the appropriate response. I actually did some emotionally intelligent stuff on that day and I was proud of myself for doing that. But we always need to be watching ourselves because when those situations arise in our hearts and we start to feel ourselves being overcome with these emotions that are like, wah, we can act in ways that will make us embarrassed later if we don't watch it. Fortunately, in that situation, I didn't. If this is something that sounds good to you, stick around because I've got another video coming up on how to stop basing self-worth on others. I'm James Burnham. Thanks for joining me.